Imagine that one day you woke up and realized that everything you were conditioned to think and taught since childhood was not real. Imagine that everything that you believed in society was a lie that you were taught to believe, not to question the outer truth behind the golden curtain. That the government lied to you, the media lied to you, your religious mentors lied to you, and everything that you thought was reality was a lie. How would you react to such an awakening? Many people would feel extremely uncomfortable in such a case because of the fear of the unknown. That initially would possibly be everyone's first reaction. Many would cling to their past life beliefs, and even though they knew that they were false, the way many barbaric cultural practices continue throughout millennia due to historical traditions and nothing else. Whenever anything groundbreaking or new makes its way to society, the initial human reaction is to reject it, due to fear of the uncertainty of the future that it may bring. If there weren't revolutionaries like Jesus Christ 2,000 years ago, imagine how different our world would be. It was provocative for its time, the new ideas that he proposed to his followers. Many of his critics knew the truth that they were taught in the Old Testament or the Torah as the one and only truth. So his ideas were radical for their time. How he contradicted the eye for an eye law of Moses and said that you need to turn the other cheek, because an eye for an eye makes the whole world blind. Essentially, Jesus Christ is one of the founders of Western civilization, which is the pinnacle of humanity's accomplishments. Western civilization was founded on ancient Greek philosophy and Judeo-Christian beliefs to later give the world democracy and basic human rights that the United States of America has and is influencing the world as a beacon for its foundation based on justice and liberty. The United States of America, which the founding fathers created, is a very rare occurrence in our history that most people take for granted. There has never been such a country that promoted the values that we do. Yes, the United States of America has a dark history, as does any country in all of human history. But as a people, we aim to push for progress, for human civil rights of various minorities, and on the foundation that all people are equal under God. These ideas were the foundation of light in our world to push forward toward democracy, freedom, and liberty. Yet dark forces have people believe that authoritarianism and slavery are better than freedom. No true faith in God should be based on a lack of free will, because that in itself dismisses the entire purpose of faith. People need to be able to understand for themselves why good is better than evil, rather than doing something from fear of punishment. The more elevated acts a person does, the more their moral conscience grows, and vice versa. For instance, if a person starts abusing any substances, then it can lead to a rabbit hole of negative events, thus lowering this person's spiritual vibration. You can't deceive God if you do something right only based on fear and not a moral conscience. You're then acting more like an animal on survival instinct than someone aiming to achieve divinity and enlightenment. And that's the purpose of ascending toward God. One misconception that I want to bring to mind based on biblical religions is that God hates gay people. I'll bring one of many examples. My favorite artist, Michelangelo Buonarroti, who was more than likely a homosexual, yet achieved the accomplishments in his life that have never been matched by anyone in any creative field. He was called divine during his life and during the Roman Inquisition, where they likely knew of his sexual preference but didn't dare to harm him because of how important and irreplaceable he was. Would God allow someone whom he hates to reach such a high level of expertise and influence in human history? Other examples of historical homosexuals are Leonardo da Vinci, Peter Lich, Tchaikovsky, and Oscar Wilde, among many others who were groundbreaking people for their time. Imagine how bland and different our world may have been without these people. So when I hear someone say that eating pork will be punished by God, but murdering a homosexual individual would be rewarded, you got it completely backwards. All I ask is that people use common sense, because despite what is written in any book, there's a clear absolute distinction between good and evil. No innocent individual deserves to be murdered for any intrinsic quality. God by default cannot approve such cruelty. Intelligence by itself can be evil because it doesn't have an ethical and moral foundation. There are various types of intelligence. Someone really smart with a high IQ can still be an evil genius, such as the most famous example with Adolf Hitler. Wisdom by default can't be evil because not only does it have an ethical and a moral foundation, but also a life experience for its validity. Therefore, wisdom is a more elevated level of intelligence than just being smart. Sometimes it just takes pure logic to put two and two together. Like the story of the emperor with an elaborate garment, where it took an innocent child to point out the basic truth that everyone already knew, but they intentionally made themselves dumb so as not to appear dumb to everyone else. The saying the emperor has no clothes is an idiom that refers to a situation where an obvious truth or falsehood is being ignored or denied by a group of people, often due to fear of social repercussions. It originates from Hans Christian Andersen's fairy tale, where an emperor is tricked into believing he has new clothes when he's actually naked. This concept goes with many aspects of society functioning in our reality. I think that the balance in anything is essential to maintain the paradigm of something that functions properly. It's not either one extreme or the other. There is a midpoint where things balance out. Same concept with conservatism and liberalism. Too much authoritarian rule can become oppressive, like with a theocratic state, or too much liberalism would lead to freedoms that can actually be detrimental to the mental and physical health of society, in doing so, creating an anarchy. If a person has critical thinking ability, they are unable to be manipulated by any kind of propaganda that mostly has an effect on the primitive majority, who initially have an immediate emotional reaction rather than an analytical one, which is what propaganda is meant to do. You were given a brain and a mind for a reason, not to be a robot or a zombie, but to question reality rather than having reality make you another brick in the wall. It took so much bloodshed to create democracy, freedom, and liberty of basic human rights, like free speech, for people to just hand it over mindlessly to those who aim to enslave them. George Orwell knew history very well, but he also understood the innate nature of humans that is ultimately flawed with various characteristics like greed, hatred, and lust for power. Interestingly enough, as much progress as the world has seen since the time of Jesus Christ, technologically humanity has made major leaps, but ethically and morally, people are still the same, and most need laws to tell them to act properly without many realizing why being civilized is important. So, a faith in God goes a step higher to make people understand on a higher mental, philosophical level why good is better than evil, which is what God wants people to understand, without aimlessly following commands. The concept of free will in this world implies that we as humans are not meant to be slaves. So we are given choices in life as everyday tests to see what we will do based on our conscience. Knowing ethics and morals is a good starting guide, but truly understanding their concept is the entire purpose of why they exist. So we're able to be discerning while still maintaining logic, like the earlier example of eating pork and murdering people for their differences, like having a different sexual orientation. You have a brain, a mind, and thoughts to be discerning and to use your imagination. It's one of the main things that separates humans from animals, an abstract thinking process. This is the reason why humans are the dominant species on Earth, despite many other life forms having a physical advantage over us. So use your brain and think. To finish this off, I would like to bring to mind an iconic sculpture by the French 19th century artist Auguste Rodin, titled The Thinker, which shows an extremely muscular nude man sitting down and using his most powerful muscle that we can't see, which is his brain and mind, to rationalize our reality. It's the one thing that I believe stays with us after our body dies and leaves with the soul, the experiences and lessons of a lifetime. Rene Descartes famously said, I think, therefore I am, which it implies that while other knowledge could be a figment of imagination, deception, or mistake, the very act of doubting one's own existence served as proof of the reality of one's own mind. There must be a thinking entity or self for there to be thought. So be the very essence of being and imagine.